The first thing I always start with is on the presentation is while we're talking about inclusion. I mean, we are, as I can hear it from a lot of people, we are in 2024, and we should have achieved something in inclusion, especially in our Western countries like Europe or United States. But still, we keep talking about inclusion. And the answer is easy. If we keep talking about diversity today, it's because we have failed. And maybe you are too afraid to say we have failed because we are so sure about our culture. So what I was saying is we have failed. We have failed and we need to admit it. We need to look at it in front and to find solution. That's the point. We have failed because we keep looking at people through the lens of stereotypes. We have failed to be more inclusive, basically, to be less racist, and we have failed to combat our own biases. Because generally, when we are talking about inclusion, about racism, xenophobia, or anything, we are talking about people, not ourselves. In general, we don't ask ourselves, am I racist? I don't know. I may be sexist, but I don't know it because I've never take enough time to think about it. So we have failed to build equality. That's why diversity is such an important thing. And we keep talking because discrimination, inequality, because racism, they still exist. They didn't disappear. So the first thing is, I can ask you, is there any racist, misogynist, rapist, sexist, fatphobic, or Islamophobic among us, among you, on the 18 people who are watching now? Is there any sexist or racist person? I don't know. But have you ever asked yourself if you are? That's the first step to start with. Am I on one of those? Am I racist? When I start asking myself if I'm racist, I'm going to look at what is racism. If I don't ask myself, I never see, I never feel it. I'll never be discussed by it. Because when you might think that you are sexist or racist, you can get really disgusted and say, no, I'm absolutely not. That's horrible. But if you don't think about it, that might be normal. And when you see it on people, behaviors, that's going to be totally normal. Because you don't feel the smell of it, the disgustingness of it. So think about it. Am I racist? Am I sexist? That's the first thing to think about it. And the thing is, we need to think about that because globally today, in our day, in 2024, globally, women perform 76.2 of total hours of unpaid care work, basically domestic works, domestic responsibility at home. It's exactly the same in France, in Europe, and in the world. That's the reality of today. 1 in 3 women, which close to 1 billion, has experienced physical or sexual violence in their lifetime. It could be more on some areas. That's a lot. 50 women are dying, are killed by intimate partners, family members, husbands, boyfriends. In France, it's around 150 people. That's a lot in a year. That's a lot of people. That's 1 woman dying every 2 days. That's really a lot. In the UAE, 43 of LGBTQ plus individuals reported discrimination or harassment. In France, job applicants North African or African, it's around 36 to 50%. And the feeling of discrimination goes up to 60%, 55, 60%. That's a lot of people feeling discriminated. A candidate with disabilities receive 26 fewer responses to job application. And if we look at it, only 150 are studying. That's really not a lot of people. Only 8% of CEO position listed company in the UAE are held by women. 8%. And LGBTQ plus youth are 5 times more likely to attempt suicide compared to their heterosexual peers. I didn't bring all the numbers. That's just random numbers, but that's not even the reality. What we are experiencing when we talk about inclusion and diversity and discrimination and racism. Because when we talk about EDI, we always introduce EDI as a funny thing, as something good. Like we're going to do something good. And that's true. But we are doing something, we're going to try to do something good because there is really, really bad thing existing. Because discrimination, racism, and all what I've been saying from 10 minutes, that still exists. That's why there is EDI. So EDI means people are suffering, basically. EDI is a positive thing, but necessary thing because really people are suffering. And that's important because their lives matter. And we have a responsibility on this. That's what's important. I'm going to show you to understand EDI and to understand why I might be racist or sexist or rapist or fatphobic. And I'm going to talk about rapist because it could be in some way shocking. We're going to go to it. But first, I can ask if I'm a racist or sexist. What does it come? Firstly, it comes from stereotypes. Stereotypes is things that we see every day and really widely shared and simplified. They're really simple things. It's not complicated ideas. And we fix this belief or social representation and we associate this with groups, with French, with Spanish, with Latinos, or whatsoever. And those perceptions are often based on generalization, which means if I have a stereotype against Portuguese, if I see any Portuguese, I'm going to think he's going to be one of this group. That stereotype. In general, stereotypes are not really good. So that ignore the individual diversity. And it could be really, it influence our attitude heavily. We don't see it, we don't feel it, but it really influences your behavior every day. And that reinforces discrimination, of course, and inequalities. Just tell me if you see the video. That's the first video. And the second one, so you have here two common stereotypes about women. Those videos, the first one, is a really famous person in United States. He has like 10 million followers, really famous for this short videos. They are mainly about women in general, but even they treat about race and inequalities, and they talk about common stereotypes. And on this video, it's a good one because we can see a lot of stereotypes. You see the stereotype of women and space, women and cars, women driving with the maquillage, everything that's that's been circulating around about women. The second one is woman driving. When he says mom, we can see the car crashing, and he's like, "Mom is at home." Like because the stereotype is women, they don't drive, they don't know how to drive. They're really bad drivers, and that's really strong stereotype. If you ask anyone, women they don't know how to drive. They don't drive. The funny thing is, if we go to see numbers, if we see numbers, because in France they did a challenging stereotype, an opposite stereotype, but based on stereotype. So we've been saying women they don't know how to drive. They're really bad drivers. Fine. They took in France an advertising to say they're challenging the stereotype. Drive like a woman. Okay, you can be well. That could be offensive because it's saying basically woman, but they're using they're flipping the stereotype because if we see the number 88 of young drivers are men, 93 drunk drivers are men, 84 of fatal road accidents are caused by men. So it's fine if women they don't know how to drive, but they have less accidents. So okay, don't drive like a man, drive like a woman. And that's a funny thing of using stereotype in a different way because sometimes you can combat a stereotype. It's not that easy. Here they're using it, making you more aware about it. Maybe have maybe laugh about it, but after a time you're gonna think about it. And I find it particularly interesting. What stereotype are? Stereotypes are funny in general. As you can see, for the woman, guys, mom is at home. She's crushing her car. And the first video, I have here a stereotype in France. The picture on the right, we can read in photo de classe of Portugal, which means a class picture photo in Portugal. So because the stereotype in France about Portuguese, it's they are really here. And that's a common stereotype in France. Really huge one. I mean, you ask anyone about Portuguese, oh, they're hairy. Okay. But that's totally a constructed ideas. It's not based on anything. Some people, they just never met any Portuguese, but they keep saying, oh, okay, they're hairy. They love that. And we know, of course, about Portuguese. Okay, fine. That's a stereotype. And think about it. When you're laughing at stereotype, think there probably someone who's not gonna laugh about it. So it's funny until it's on your expense. Then it's not funny. Look like a girl, act like a lady, think like a man, walk like a boss. That's another one. The other thing we can see it in mass. I mean, in advertising, especially in advertising, they're everywhere. And the pictures in here are not from 1955. They are just from 2022, 23, or 20. So it's our today's advertising. And the problem is the sexualization of women. I mean, you can watch TV without any products for yogurt, for a car. You see the first one, the new electric toy. And you can see this, the car is really small. The woman is huge. It's bigger. And the woman is not dressed, basically. And they refer to the woman as a toy. Of course, they are not talking about the car. They are doing a parallel between the car and the woman. You can see the same on the central image. And the small toy, what do you take with your tea? One lamp or two? That's a crazy picture. I mean, that's a supermarket. A supermarket doing that with tea bag, as you can see it, and you see the pictures. It's totally crazy. Why do you need such an image to sell tea bags and to sell your supermarket brand? Seriously? And the last one, better things to be stuck in than the car in front. Like it's obvious and clear for everyone. So it's not just funny or stereotype anymore. It's more than that. It's about women are that's an socialization of women to a body accessible, of course accessible, and free to be dominated. Body at domestic work to satisfy other, and body at sex to satisfy men's. So mainly women's are to satisfy others. That's the main uh, project of the women's. Stereotypes now it could be funny on this one, even for some people on this one. But this one, the first one, goes to this one. This one is how we see women in our society. Because the stereotype I see it on driving is the same as I see a woman at an office or doing some jobs. And that's huge difference. If you look at it, the first pictures must have outfit to impress. So a man is well dressed, like going to the office, fine. But the woman, on the other one, must have fancy little knickers to impress. That's what they are saying. So again, we come back to this sexualization of women. Women are only a body. So if they want to impress, it's not with their work or mind or anything else. No, it's with their body. That's the only way you can impress people. And that's why we teach our young girls in all societies. If you want to exist in a society, in a space, use your body. Don't use your brain. Use your body. That's the main message. And that's Mark and Spencer, huge brand in UK. The other one is in London. So we're not talking about countries because generally when we think about stereotype or sexist advertising, we might think the condition of women is really, really worse in some countries. But if we look at our countries, it's not that good. You do the girl boss thing. We do the CEO thing. Do you see the stereotype in this one? I guess you can see it. In here we use girl. We don't use woman. Basically, it means women don't know how to do it. Just do your girl boss. We don't use man boss. We use boss. It's common. We don't ask, we don't check because boss is man. So when something is like playing, it's like a role game. It's like acting. Okay, do your girl boss, and we'll do the CEO thing. That's really offended. This ad a lot of people send emails, messages to the company to remove it, and they succeeded because it's really offensive on women. And that's not professional on EDI. You might think, okay, but that's when you're doing an advertising, you don't know about all the issues, especially the EDI issues, even if we are in 2024. The thing is, even when you're a professional on EDI or praising for EDI, you might do the same because you have the same biases, because stereotypes are really complicated to deal with. The next picture, look at this. Probably some of you speaks better Spanish than me. The first picture on the left, that's the government of junta. Junta, I don't know exactly how to pronounce it, but of Galicia. It's Junta of Galicia. So the government of Galicia. They did an advertising praising EDI, like for women. It's supposed to be a good thing to do. But they did the same mistake because they didn't think about it that much. What they're saying is, again, if my Spanish, but I wrote it in here, wear your sport legging and go running at night. Okay? What happens now? It shouldn't happen, but it does. What are they talking about? They are talking about rape, about being raped. So the message is, you're wearing sport leggings, so you're not wearing the right outfit, first of all. Okay. And then you're going by night to do a run. No, that's not smart. Don't go by night. Go in the morning. Go on the day. What happens? You're going to be raped. It's something inevitable. There's nothing we can do about it. If you go by night wearing a legging, you're going to be raped. And it's not our problem because we warned you. We told you not to. It shouldn't happen, but it does. Absolutely nothing to do. So the blame is on women. They're not blaming the rapist. They're not saying, okay, be careful. We're going to do our best. You have the right to go on night. And we're going to see how he is. They're not asking how the rapist, what he's wearing, but the woman running by night. It's exactly the same with the picture next to it. If you take a metro or something by night, it shouldn't happen, but it does. Exactly the same message. So basically, don't go to work. If you finish really late, don't do it. And be careful on what you're wearing. And those are professionals. I mean, that's officials. The other one, I don't know, again, but biases, how they work. It's an advertising contra la pobreza infantil, against poverty. And you have on the side a woman. Okay, what's the relation with these two? Because they had to explain. That's an official association. They had to explain. They said it's because we did that on summer. So it did make sense for us. We have a woman, like she's going to the beach, and we are fighting against poverty. Okay. Again, I don't see the relation between those two, but so what we need to understand is the difference between the worlds: racism, injustice, inequality, segregation, stigmatization. Because those are totally different. They reflect different realities. If we're talking about racism, it's clear. It's prejudice or discrimination against someone based on his race or ethnicity. If we see to segregation, it's a separation of a group based on certain characteristic, often leading to discrimination. And sometimes we do segregation without knowing we are segregated. And that's because it's complicated. If we put a group with common characteristic, we might segregate people. If we put all the bad students on the same class, we are doing segregations because we are perpetuating something. The feeling those people are going to feel they belong to a group, to really uh, inferior group than the other group, and you're the only characteristic you're basing it's the level on the studies. And that segregation goes in general with stigmatization. Stigmatization is when you assign a negative stereotype. So we come back to our stereotype. All those are related to stereotype, of course. So discrimination is based on criterion defined by law, pertains to a situation covered by law. Discrimination is basic, is unfavorable treatment toward a person that meets two cumulative conditions. That's it. But the problem, it is complicated when it's direct, it's easy. I mean, if I'm if I say it, if I discriminate someone directly, that's easy. The thing is when it's indirect. To give you an example for indirect discrimination, is if I organize all my meetings by nights at 7 o'clock, the most important meetings in a university or anywhere, that's an indirect discrimination. Because I'm not thinking of the people without a boss. If you have children, if you can go, if you live far, that might be different discrimination. So indirect discrimination is the hardest way one to see. Direct are more easy. If I say, okay, you're a woman, you can get in my class. Why? Because you're a woman, because you're black, because you're small, because you're short, because whatsoever. That's direct. That's easy to see. But if I organize myself and at the end, you're going to see the same characteristic on the group refused and the group accepted. That's discrimination. In Portugal, there is about 19 criteria of discriminations. In France, is around 25 criteria of discrimination. You can find parentage, age, gender, sexual orientation, so on. Now, the state of discrimination. You have legal discrimination, because yes, we do have legal discrimination and justified. An example, if I'm a famous director, or just a director for a movie, if I need a woman character, I mean, I'm going to ask for a woman and I'm going to say, okay, no, you can do it. You're a man. That's not discrimination. That's justified by law. I can hire only a woman for that. So there is some jobs, some situation, discrimination is fine, is legal. And again, we all discriminate. The thing is to not do it with the illegal criteria. Illegal discrimination, they can be direct, indirect, or systemic. Easy to understand. And the last one is the positive discrimination. That's a state of discrimination where it's an old one, but we're more talking about it recently. It's what we call affirmative action in the United States. Positive action, positive, discrimination, positive. It's basically to give some extra rights to people discriminated to catch up the others one. Like I can say, okay, this year, if I have 100 students, I'm going to say, I'm going to reserve like 50% only for women whatsoever. That's positive, but that has many limits. The discrimination, the limits. Oh, yeah, sorry. We're going to come back to the limits after that. The impact now of those discrimination on society. Economic costs, social division, hindrance to social progress, loss of talent, innovation, reputation, inclusivity, academic excellence. The current landscape of diversity in STEM in Europe, the numbers are really interesting. Again, it's not all the numbers, but if we see it's really close. Europe, Portugal, or France, we can see in ICT jobs, women constitute around 20%. That's 2021. For women in science, it's around 40, 30%, like in France. That's not a lot. And tech startup, it's 15%, and that's the same everywhere. In France, it's even less than that because it's only 9% of women. They have a tech startup. Why do we have, why we can be more inclusive? Because we have obstacles. The obstacles are unconscious bias, studies. It's really complicated for men to accept that there is biases. Because that means what I've got, I didn't get it because I'm good, but maybe because I'm white, and maybe because I'm a man. And that's really hard for anyone. That's an obstacle. The systemic issue, socioeconomic, of course, disparities between men and women, the cultural stereotype, and the Matilda effect. The Matilda effect is when you don't recognize the work done by a woman just because it's a woman, and you don't attribute her the work and the merit. That's the Matilda effect. I go more quickly because time is running. Why men don't believe data on gender bias in science? That's what I was saying. They don't believe because implies their own success may be partly due to gender advantage. Evidence of bias, denial of bias despite data. Am I doing this? I don't know. I'm writing on my own screen, right? Okay. Now to be aware of something really important is the gender equality paradox in STEM. That's in general, we think that we are much better than Iran, for example, or than Saudi Arabia. If I ask anyone of you, well, do you think we're doing much better in studies, in science studies, in STEM studies than Saudi Arabia? Getting to me, oh, of course. Iran, of course. But the problem is the reality is totally different. They are doing much, much, much better than us, than our country, than Europe. If you see the line, Global Gender Gap Index, you have the countries on the left where there is more equality on the country, on the society. You can see Belgium, Netherlands, Lithuania. This country, they have the disparity is bigger, the gap is much, much better between men and women than the other countries like Turkey or Algeria. So Algeria, Tunisia, or Turkey are doing really much better than Belgium or Netherlands, which is the paradox for us. Because how can a non equal society do much better than Belgium or France or even Portugal, which obviously they have more rights, more equality in the country and the society. That's what we call the gender equality paradox, especially in STEM. But basically, we can see it on most of the classes. There is different explanation. The initial interpretation suggests intrinsic differences on the countries. Some say people are more freer to choose career aligning with their preferences. Women may be less attracted to STEM fields, and this preference become more evident in egalitarian society. Basically, you are more free to do whatever you want in France, in Europe, than in Saudi Arabia. That's why you don't choose STEM, because you're free to do it, so you won't choose STEM. So that means if you are free to choose, you won't choose STEM. That's a paradox too. But there is another explanation, a recent one, refers to cultural and basically saying that we didn't, the stereotypes are more predominant in our societies than on those societies, on STEM, on science. Maybe in Saudi Arabia or Albania or United Arab Emirates, the societies are not equal between men's and women's, but there is no stereotype on science about women's, not that much. And we have much more stereotype in science, in STEM, in our countries. And you can see it on this. If you see the percentage of female students enrolled in natural science, mathematics, and statistics program in higher education, different parts of the world, you can see exactly what we've been talking about now is countries like Turkey, Algeria, you see 65% and above. And you can see France, United States, or Argentina, it's less than 47%, much more less. So that's the paradox. And if we look at all numbers, any number, distribution of score difference, that's official. That's from UNESCO. If you see any numbers, you're always going to find the same differences and the same paradox. Distribution, see the first country in the world, I mean, important, the gap between boys and girls in primary education, grade 4, which is primary school. Saudi Arabia is the first country where female outperform men. If you look at on the bottom on the graph, you're going to find Portugal, France, Italy. So Saudi Arabia is doing 10 times much better than Italy in women and science. They succeed much more. That's the paradox I was talking about. And that's really complicated to see because we don't see it in general. We always think ourselves we are much better and we have nothing to do. And we think we are egalitarian society, so there is nothing to do more for women. It's fine. But if you look at the numbers, it's not that fine. See another graph. It doesn't matter the age or the level, even university, it's always the same. All the Arabic countries and the Eastern countries are doing much better than Europe or United States. I mean, the gap. Girls outperform. There's a lot of explanation. We don't have to go time to go on that. So the thing is, if we go only on positive discrimination, I mean, okay, I'm gonna take more girls this year than it could be a good idea. You might think it's a good idea, but it's a short-term solution. It's going to keep the structural barriers. You can do it each year. And it relies on you, not on the system. What you need to do is to change the environment, cultural transformation. You need to ban stereotypes. You need to create a safe space to address systemic issues. And systemic issues are not positive discrimination. It doesn't work that way. So the impact is immediate of inclusive environment, like the leaky pipeline. Because if you decide to choose to hire more women, that's fine. But you're going to meet the leaky pipeline. The leaky pipeline is many women enter, but they don't go to the end of it. They're going to leave in general. And that's because the environment's still not that good. Because of hostile work environment, especially in science, limited advanced opportunities, work-life imbalance, and a lot of reasons like this one. Concrete action for an inclusive environment. Key differences. An inclusive environment, what we've been talking. You can do things, actions to your individual level or institutional level. Individual level, self-reflection. That's what I was saying on the beginning. Become aware of personal unconscious biases. Think about it. Think about yourself. Change yourself, first of all. If you don't change yourself, no way to talk about discrimination, EDI, or positive discrimination. Continuous education, engage in learning, active support, being allied to colleagues. At an institutional level, fair policies, training, awareness, committed leadership. Those are really important. I'm gonna stop on this one because otherwise for some of you that know me, I can speak like for 1 more hour. So I didn't talk about the continuum of sexual violence, but basically, just to say it in one word, basically stereotypes, it might be innocent, you might see it as something normal, but that's the beginning of jokes. It can go to sexual assault and to rape. That's the beginning. It's a continuum. It's the same line. When you start there, you might finish at the end. And I want to give you an example, really good one, close to IPB, actually. It's something happened in Supélec. Supélec is, I don't know if you've heard about it. It's a really famous school, engineer school in France. In France, it's number 2. It's really high level elite. To get in, it's really complicated. And when you get out, you have really good salary. It's really well ranked on the world, even. It's number 16 on the Shanghai academic ranking and 69 on the QSU World University ranking. So really good university. What happened is they did a survey and they were pretty sure they're going to find nothing because they have a lot of association. They're doing all the EDI work. They're doing really good. They thought they're doing good. But at the end, they found that they had more than 100 rape and sexual assault on the school. They didn't know about it. They were like, what? 100 on our school? A school with that name in France? It sparked a lot of outrages in France. They talked a lot about it because it's a really huge school. So sexual harassment, 51 women and 23 men. Sexual assault, 46. And rape, 20 women. 20 women have been raped on their school. They didn't know about it until they did the survey. And I'm not talking about any university. I'm talking about the number 2 in France. So that means even if we think we are doing really good, we need to make sure which environment we have in our university. And so that's really important, even for school like this one. Thank you very much.